This is the Hard Thing Podcast. Today, we are overcoming average. Welcome back to another episode of the Hard Thing Podcast. This is the podcast that helps you overcome average, step up above mediocrity, all by doing hard things. I'm one of your co-hosts, Justin Lewis, and I'm here with my other co-hosts, Ty Crockett. Say hello, Ty.
Ty.
And my dog, Journey. Say hello, Journey. Thank you. Well, if you haven't noticed, I'm here with my dog, Journey, and she is going to be making some noise today. So if it annoys you, just disregard it. But if it annoys you a lot, then I'm sorry. Go find another podcast because we're doing the best we can here. Anyways, today is our Thursday meditation show. And the basic point of this part of the show, rather than the Monday show where we talk with guests who have done hard things, been there, done that, lived to tell the tale, high-performing individuals, those are. The purpose of this show, this episode, the Thursday show, is to give you live examples of people doing hard things. Me and Ty are going to be live experiments of taking on the challenges we give each other every Thursday or so, and taking on the action items given to us from the guests on our Monday episodes. So that's the point of today's show. Without further ado then, let's jump into it. As always, we start off talking about the challenge that one of us took 2 weeks ago. Ty, you took the challenge 2 weeks ago to take your wife on a wow date. Under $50. Mm-hmm. How did that go?
Well, I don't know if people generally would qualify this as a wow date, but we went on a date and it was really great, and we're going to continue doing it. Well, and the reason why that's a good news is because before we weren't really doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I consider that a wow date because, I mean, we've talked about this. Like, there's no real way to quantify how well you're doing in your marriage.
Right.
Or romantically or
other than, like, feelings.
Yeah.
Like, I feel good about it.
But even then, like...
Even then, it's not.
I hear stories of people who are just kind of blindsided by the fact that their wife wants a divorce or their husband just isn't feeling it.
Just,
or
like, leaves or whatever.
Yeah. And so you could be feeling like, hey, everything's going hunky-dory right now.
But on the flip side, it might not be. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Awesome. Then let's talk about our action items from our guest. So this last Monday, I talked with Cynthia Zhai. She is a voice coach. And when I say voice coach, I quite literally mean a voice coach that helps with speaking, like literally breathing, speaking, stuff like that, but also giving talks, giving speeches, and so forth. So the first action item, and the first two are very specific. The first one was to sigh with more sound, so that way you can kind of warm up your voice in the morning a little bit. And the second one kind of goes hand in hand. It was to hum in the morning to warm up your voice. And I know that, Ty, you do some singing, right? Mm-hmm. What was your experience with these action items?
Well, actually, what's really funny is that I kind of already did this. I didn't do the humming, right? But in the mornings, especially if I'm like close to having a meeting with my team, and I've woken up recently, I'll just kind of like grunt.
Yeah.
So I don't hum, but humming sounds like it's probably a better option, just because the grunting is kind of raw and it's probably not good for the voice.
Right.
But I'll kind of like to kind of wake myself up and get the voice out, especially because I don't know about you, but in the morning sometimes my voice doesn't even come out, like at all. So I need to talk. So I was kind of already doing that, but the humming part is not something. Also the sighing, I'm curious what that means. You said
sigh with more sound.
Well, in parentheses, you said also force out voice.
Force out voice.
Force out voice.
Sorry.
Okay, that.
Stupid texting.
What does that mean?
Well, the basic idea is we actually did like an exercise on the show where you sigh and you say the word hi. And she says the way you breathe, normally people breathe where their chest, when you inhale, their chest expands and their stomach contracts, right? She says it's supposed to be the opposite. When you breathe in, your stomach is supposed to expand because your lungs are filling with air, and then contract because your diaphragm is pushing out the air, right? Mm-hmm. So when you sigh, you're supposed to say that the word hi or something. Kind of like push the word out a little bit. And supposedly if you do that 2 weeks in a row, that's supposed to help your voice prepare and transition you more towards speaking from your diaphragm rather than from your throat.
Oh, interesting.
You know.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell the difference when you're singing, when you're singing from your throat versus when you're singing from your diaphragm.
Diaphragm.
Yeah. It's weird, huh?
Yeah, it is. And actually, I didn't know I was doing that when I was singing, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
Because I have zero training when it comes to singing, and my voice is not that great, so.
I don't know. It sounds fine to me.
It's okay.
Funny enough, so I told you, you know how, like, I always yawn a lot, right? Mm-hmm. I brought this up.
He is yawning as we speak.
I brought this up as we, as we talked about this last week, but after having this conversation, and I actually had this conversation like months ago, and I've had certain podcast opportunities since then. But since then, I've actually, whenever I have podcasts in the morning, like on Saturday mornings at 9 or something, I'll like wake up and do some of these exercises to kind of get my voice ready. I don't like grunt like you do, but like I'll do like weird like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'll even do that too. Like
Yeah.
like just forcing out like ah.
Yeah, just like warm up your
Yeah.
vocal cords or whatever.
Right.
And part of it for me is not just like warming up vocal cords, but like warming up the breathing apparatus,
Yeah, just the entire
Yeah, especially when you wake up. And that's one reason why doing workouts in the morning is really good, I think. Mm-hmm. But also I think it regulates how your body like warms itself a little bit. I don't know, but that's just personal.
Actually, real quick tangent.
Yeah.
Working out in the morning. So we did that, right? You and I were doing that.
Yeah,
And so
swimming.
for like maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I was working out in the morning, and then I stopped doing it, and then I started going again at my normal time, which is like during lunch.
Yeah.
And I realized that I'm way more like into the workouts in
lunch?
In the lunch ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's because my brain is finally awake.
It's awake. Yeah.
And so I actually prefer not working out in the morning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to each his own, and there's definite benefits to both. Like you said, like you're just more focused when you don't work out in the morning. You work out later in the day. When you work out in the morning, it helps focus you for other things in certain aspects.
Right.
So I don't know. For each his own.
Also, going along the lines of like focus, like I realized, so I tried to like not drink soda.
Yeah.
And that also included like caffeine.
Sure.
And then I started drinking caffeine recently, this week.
Okay.
Actually, and I've already noticed a huge difference in my ability to focus when I do drink caffeine. Like I'm super focused, and I get a ton done. And
So
I noticed
caffeine is superpower.
So
for
it
Ty.
turns out caffeine is important for me too. So, anyway.
Well, I mean, you have to find your superpower, Ty.
Yeah, it's true.
You just gotta.
Moving on to the third point, though, that she said, the thing that I think is interesting about this point that I'm about to share is that I feel like it's the go-to. Like if someone ever says to you, like, what's the best 3 things you can do?
Yeah.
Like this one is almost always sort of in there, so it becomes cliche.
Yeah.
But it's in there, and it is cliche because of how important it is and
Yeah.
the effect that it can have on your life.
Yeah.
And it says, think about 3 to 5 things to be grateful for each day.
Yeah.
Some people modify it to say write down 3 to 5 things.
Right.
It's all kind of different, but it all focuses around the idea of being grateful.
Exactly.
And I think that one, of all 3, and just in general, that one's like always the most important one, even though it's the most cliche.
Yeah.
And most people just kind of look over it and like, ah. And to be honest, in the past, I hear it and I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't do that, dang it.
Yeah.
I need to start doing that.
Yeah.
But just being more grateful overall, I think is so important. So I'm glad that they included that.
Yeah. Actually, there was a study done. There's always studies being done,
Yeah.
But there was another study done where they took a group of people and... Let me yawn first.
Another yawn.
Yeah. They took a group of people and they separated them into control group and normal group, right? Or the test group and the control group. The control group basically just showed how happy they were. They did a self-assessment to see how happy they are, and they ranked themselves happy on this level, right? Mm-hmm. And the test group did the same thing, and then they had the test group do a gratitude journal for like a week, right? 7 days, that's it. Mm-hmm. And then they redid the test, so both groups measured how happy they considered themselves, mm-hmm. and obviously the gratitude group found themselves happier, mm-hmm. or rated themselves happier.
Yeah.
They did the same test 6 months later.
With the same people?
With the same people.
Okay.
Where they just asked them, rate yourself how happy you are. And between the 6 months, they didn't have anything going on. It was mm-hmm. just their lives as normal. And the people who did the gratitude part mm-hmm. still ranked themselves higher on average. Oh, now, it's self-ranking, so it's not it's not conclusive, but...
Well, and also I wonder, when the person went in for the testing, for the experiment, mm-hmm. were they told?
Right, like what the purpose of the experiment?
Because I feel like a big part of an experiment or a study is that like the person doesn't actually know they're being...
Exactly.
Or they don't know the actual details of what's going on.
Right.
And so when you're ranking yourself like, I am happy...
Right.
That means that you probably know like what it's for, and like then you do a gratitude journal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows, like maybe that is a manifestation, like them ranking themselves. I mean, happiness is a subjective feeling like within you. So if they're the ones ranking themselves as a little bit happier,
mm-hmm. then technically
it worked.
It's making it's objective. Like it's making it objective.
Even if it was like a placebo, like even if doing the gratitude journal didn't actually make them happier,
right?
Like they ranked themselves as happier, and so therefore it worked in the end. Like
that's super fascinating too.
Yeah,
because like it doesn't work by itself, but technically it does because we make it work by itself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's actually. I can't remember who I was talking to. I think it was my brother talking about, do you know what candlesticks are?
Yeah. In trading, right?
Yeah. So in stock trading, some, Japanese people came up with candlesticks, and seeing certain patterns, like if you see this X pattern, it's going to have an uptrend, and then you have patterns that show downtrends. Mm-hmm. Anyways, the idea is the reason why they work is because people are expecting it to work. So like, because if you think about it, if you see a pattern, if 10 people see a pattern of it going to be up, then you're going to buy because it's going to go up.
And it influences. And
by buying, the price goes up because the demand goes up, right?
That's so weird.
And so, yeah. And then when you see the pattern going down, it's essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of the same idea, I guess.
That's super fascinating. Kind of another experience with gratitude though. So Ty and I come from a background where it's a religious background where you can pray to God and ask for specific blessings, right? Like in free form words. And I had often had habits of treating it almost like, treating God like you would McDonald's. Like, hey, I'll take a number 5 college education and a large family with a side of success and wealth, right? And then for some reason, like I realized that I was kind of ungrateful, right? Mm. And so about a year ago, January, a year ago, January, I decided to give myself the challenge just to only be grateful in my prayers. And again, this is coming from someone who like something goes wrong, like my car breaks down. In my mind, it's like, God, please help me, right? So this was like kind of a big shift mentally. And I remember like many bad things happening that month that I did it, where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, And instead of like immediately thinking like, God, please help me, please rescue me from this blah, 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 or please give me the strength to, Mm-hmm. Instead it was like, what am I grateful for? Because like this is a hard thing right now that I'm doing. And I can't just like be trite and say like, thank you, God, for giving me this trial that I'm getting stronger when I don't feel that, right?
Yeah.
So I had to find things that I was like really grateful for. And I remember like at least one specific time when like my car was just broken down. I was waiting for a ride for my wife and her brother was having some health issues. It was just like a bad day. And I was like walking on the side of the road, and I said like this prayer that like, I was like, thank you for giving me like patience to deal with today. Like, thank you. And I think I also said something like, thank you that today's going to end, you know, like at some point.
That there's an end.
Yeah. Like that I get to go to sleep and tomorrow gets to come. Cause like today's not super fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just changed my perspective. And, I learned that there's being grateful, but then there's like being grateful.
Like feeling.
Yeah. There's like two levels. Like you can say 3 to 5 things that you're thankful for, but then you can also like realize that you're thankful for 3 to 5 things. You know what I mean? And I think one is way more powerful.
Well, I feel like, so I was challenged to do a full month of every day in my journal, write 5 things I was grateful for, right? And after the first like 3 days, it's like, I'm grateful for hands.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm grateful that I can
hands.
see. Yeah. Like I'm grateful I can write this down, you know, like I'm grateful I can, and they become things. It just becomes like a list of things.
Yeah.
But what I think you're saying is like feeling gratitude for something is different than just marking off things that you're grateful for, quote unquote. And I think that we should all strive to feel grateful, and not just like list off things you're grateful for specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's how an exercise like this could potentially change you.
Yeah.
And actually, funny enough, one of my other podcast guests, gosh, I got to remember which episode it was, but it was with Jonathan Robinson, right? And he's written many books on happiness, finance, health. He's just like a really interesting guy that just writes books on all sorts of things. And he has his own podcast where he interviews religious leaders, and he's had the chance to interview the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa and stuff. And he said that he was in kind of a hard place in his life, and he met this guy that was super happy, and he's like, how are you so happy? And he's like, oh, I met this, this guru in this ashram in India that gave me this mantra that was like really, really powerful. And I'll paraphrase the story, but if you want to get the full one, look in the show notes. I'll put the link to the actual episode there. But basically, he makes this whole trip to India. He's kind of pissed because it's taken forever. He gets to this guru, and he's like, I'm here for this mantra. And the guru's like, oh, yes, I have this life-changing mantra. And I'm sorry if my accent's really bad. And then the guru leans in to Jonathan, and he says, here's my mantra. Thank you. And he's like, what? Are you kidding me? He's like, no. That was your old mantra. This is the new one. Thank you. And so Jonathan's like getting mad. No, Jonathan's like mad. He gets back in the cab, and instead of like being mad, he's like, thank you. And in his words, he felt this change over himself. And I think it's not so much the mantra, but like the mindset shift that we're looking for. Isn't
that interesting? I feel like in like all the movies and all the stories you hear, it's always like that. It's exactly like that, where it's like, it's that simple. Come on. Yeah. Like we don't need to go find the wisest man, because the wisest man is going to tell you what we all, the cliches.
Yeah. Ironically.
Because that's a cliche. Say thank you.
Yeah. Huh. That's super wise that you just said that. So maybe instead of looking for the wisest man, we just need to be humble enough to like pay attention to these words of wisdom that we already have.
Yeah. And live them.
Yeah. Well, that's a good note to move on to the next section. I feel like that was very wise, Ty. So we'll end on a good note. I want to give you some new challenges.
Yes.
And I actually have 4 ideas, so you can pick from 4.
4 whole ideas. You're changing things up on me.
Yeah, well, I just had some ideas, and 2 of them are kind of similar, and plus we talked about gratitude today.
Okay, before you get into it, let me just get my little handy notebook. Yeah. Okay, cool. What are the challenges?
Okay, so 2 of them are very similar.
Okay.
One of them has to do with what we talked about last week, and then the other one has to do with what we talked about today.
Cool.
So number 1 is to write a song for your wife. Number 2 is to play your music in public. And for that, I mean 2 people that you've never played your music in front of, at least. But public can mean anything. But that's just what I would consider public. Number three, be intentional with social media for the next week or 2 weeks, whichever one you choose. And with that, I mean, whenever you get on social media, before you actually open up whatever app or service you're using platform, ask yourself the question, what am I getting on to do or look for? And then instead of getting on social media, actually go look for that thing. So for example, me, often on LinkedIn, I'll go on and scroll looking for these people that I follow that always do like these cool videos about inventions. So instead of doing that, I might actually just go to YouTube and look up a single video on inventions that I think are cool. You know, kind of satisfy the actual need rather than just wasting time.
So sometimes I'll get into bed. A lot of people say that I shouldn't do this, but this actually helps me. So I'll get into bed and I'll scroll through like Twitter or Facebook.
Sure.
And like while I'm doing it, I'm not talking, I'm not really using my brain. I'm just kind of scrolling for the purpose of like dumbing my brain down.
Okay.
And then when I'm tired, turn off the screen, put it down, and I'm out.
Okay. Even then, I would challenge you to think about what you're trying to do and look for other ways to do it. So you're trying to turn off your brain, right?
Yeah.
So maybe instead what you could do is
you're saying find an alternative for that purpose, whatever that purpose is.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And part of this challenge
is... it's not really about being intentional with social media. It's about...
finding replacements almost.
Yeah.
But part of this challenge is figuring out like those moments when there aren't alternatives to social media. Like, and that's how you'll start being intentional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For example, like if you want to reach out to someone for an opportunity or something, and social media is the only way you can do it. I don't know. That's just an example.
Right.
Number 4, because we're talking about gratitude today, I would say, I haven't formed this one fully in my head, but it's basically spend these next 2 weeks in a state of gratitude and record that in some way or fashion, whether that's writing what you're grateful for or cataloging how you feel at certain moments because of the gratitude that you're trying to harbor, or maybe you just make a video saying this is my experience, and your gratitude can look however you'd like. Maybe it's prayer, maybe it's just thanking people, maybe it's just spending moments in thankfulness. So, which challenge will you pick?
Number 1.
Make a song for your wife. Oh, that's cool.
What's the date today?
It is the 14th.
That's it. I chose.
Cool.
I picked.
If you guys want to see next week's episode, then come back. That was the weirdest transition I've ever had. But what I mean to say is, stay tuned for this Monday's episode. It's going to be another great episode with another great guest. Next Thursday, you're going to hear me respond and give my update on how I'm doing with the challenge Ty gave me last week, which was to do 3 400s, which are actually very hard. I've done 2 so far.
Yeah, I'm curious how have they gone?
They take a long time.
Do they?
Yeah. I won't go into this because this is what we're talking about next Thursday. If you want to hear that, come back for next Thursday. Also, make sure you subscribe to the episode, subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're on YouTube, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. As well, join our Facebook group. Come to facebook.com/groups/The Hard Thing Podcast. There you can actually submit challenges to us. Join us.
Submit to us
your
challenges.
Yes. Yes.
Justin has a plethora of challenges. As you can see, he just gave me 4, but I do not have that many for him. So if you want to see Justin do something that is totally outlandish and crazy, then you can give me the challenge that I will then give to Justin.
My stupid phone, all of that you just said, it dictated that on the notepad thing I have, so it has like all of that there.
I love it.
Actually, never mind. That's an idea for later. But anyways, join the Facebook group. Again, you can submit challenges to us. Also, you can find other like-minded individuals who are like you, trying to do hard things. Find your tribe, and we'd hope to be that tribe and give you the tools, tips, tricks, tools, tactics, whatever you need to overcome average, succeed in every way you want to. Last but not least, help us raise $1,000 for Operation Underground Railroad. They're a nonprofit organization that goes undercover to rescue kids from sex trafficking. Take a moment and imagine yourself, maybe you're 8, right? And someone you thought you knew, you thought you loved, you thought you trusted, maybe they're even a part of your family, they steal you. They rob you from your place of security, and they traffic you to somewhere that you'd never imagine yourself being in. And you're surrounded by other children who are being abused daily. And you have one or two adults in your life that you shouldn't trust, you don't trust, because they are evil, evil people. And then finally, in the midst of all this darkness, one day, you see these two, maybe three American-looking people, and they've come under the pretense of doing very nasty things with you, to you, and somehow they turn out to be your benefactors, your saviors, your protectors. And they steal you away from slavery, and they put you in freedom. That's exactly what Operation Underground Railroad does. They take these kids who are in the direst of circumstances, who don't know anything else because they've been in bondage for so long. They take these kids out, and they give them a life. If you feel like you can do something about that, if you want to do something about that, go to gofundme.com/overcoming-average, donate some money there, or just go to ourrescue.org and just get involved. Just learn about what they're trying to do, what they're preaching, what they're teaching. They're just trying to spread the message that we can do something to end human trafficking. And we want to do it, but we want to help these kids. So help us raise $1,000. Last but not least, guys, I know I said that before. I always say that before, but last but not least, go out and do some hard things, because you will overcome average.